Good evening, and welcome to our regular meeting of the Helotes City Council. It's January 11th, 2018. We're underway at 7 p.m., and I'd like to wish everybody a Happy New Year. And this is our first meeting of 2018, so without further ado, we'll get underway. To open our agenda, we have the invocation, and tonight, Councilmember Massey will be giving the invocation, and then we'll have the pledges to the American and Texas flag. So if you'd please stand for the pledges and the invocation.
Dear Lord, as we begin the new year, let us be mindful of your providence in all things. We thank you for all that you have done and continue to do for us. We ask for your continued blessings on our city staff, volunteers, and elected officials. Give us wisdom as we deliberate during tonight's meeting. Help us to make the right decisions for our community with courtesy and consideration. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
honor
the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, next up, we have a public hearing. And we'll start this public hearing at 7:01. And it is to give all interested persons the right to appear and be heard on a request by Milam Helotes Plaza LLC for approval of a specific City Council approved use permit to turn an existing non-conforming restaurant, Dairy Queen, with drive-through facilities into an existing conforming restaurant with drive-through facility on property zone Neighborhood Service District B2, located at 12902 Bandera Road, more particularly described as Bexar County Appraisal District Property ID number 242364. And I take it we didn't have anyone sign up?
There's none.
Okay. Well then, having read it, we will then close the public hearing at 7:02, since no one signed up to speak either for or against it. Next, we have citizens to be heard. We have no one that signed up to speak under that header, so we will move to the consent agenda. And for those of you that are new to this type of a meeting, consent agenda is just a grouping of items that I and the staff consider fairly routine business. And the intent is to have one motion and a second, and the council approve all of these items together. However, if there's a question that needs to be asked by a council member, they can ask it. If we can answer it fairly quickly, if it needs to go into discussion, they can request for an item to be pulled. So I'll ask at this time, are there any questions or requests to pull items 4 through 8, any one or more?
I don't have a question. I'd just like to make a fact about Carl Hill
Okay.
resigning. I'd just like to thank him very much for resigning. I mean, not for resigning, for serving on the EDC. He did a great job. He took a lot of time to do it, and I really thank him very much. And the EDC is going to be losing a good guy for that commission. That's all I have.
I agree with that. Any of you have questions or a request to pull? Okay, then I would ask for a motion and a second to approve consent agenda items 4 through 8.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve consent agenda items 4 through 8 as written.
We have a motion from Fredericks. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Buys. To approve consent agenda items 4 through 8. So we have a motion and a second. We'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Consent agenda items 4 through 8 are approved unanimously. That takes us to item number 9. This is discussion of an action for approval of the specific City Council approved use permit to turn an existing non-conforming restaurant, specifically Dairy Queen with a drive-through facility, into an existing conforming restaurant. So if we can have a motion and a second to discuss, I would appreciate it.
Mayor, make a motion, we discuss and take action on 9.
We have a motion from Buys. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second from Blue. Okay, Bert, it's your motion, and we do have a representative from Dairy Queen if you have any specific questions. Otherwise, we'll just see how the discussion goes and get comments from any of you pertaining to P and Z's conclusions. And then if you need to have a question answered, we'll get him up here.
Okay. I agree with the P and Z's recommendation of approval of the variance. I just had one question, not of the owners or the representative, is why is this not considered a zoning change? It says in the verbiage that it is not a zoning change. I'm sorry,
It's just, it stays B2. It is B2 now.
but it's B2CC. That's not considered a zoning change?
No.
Okay.
The CC just indicates that it takes city council approval
Okay.
for
So
that
it's not,
specific use in that specific zone.
okay, all right. That's all I had.
Alex?
Thank you, Mayor. I think this, P and Z got it right, and I completely concur that this is just a matter of cleaning up what's already there anyway. I would just confirm that this has to do with the use and not to do with the building and/or the structures, et cetera, because I do know that there are a couple non-conforming aspects to the building. In particular, the blade sign in the front, I think, does not conform, but that wouldn't restrict the ability of the business to function or to put up another sign as long as it conforms. Is that correct?
Yes,
So it's strictly a use permit then?
it's only for the drive-through facility.
Right. That it?
That's all, thank you.
Paul?
No, I concur. We should grant the permit.
Cynthia?
Yeah, I don't have any issues with this.
Okay. No further discussion seen. We'll call the question. All in favor of approving the change from non-conforming to conforming for Dairy Queen Restaurant, the drive-through facility, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Congratulations, you're now conforming. Thank you very much. Okay, item number 10, discussion of an action for approval of a combined residential subdivision entry and single business use monument sign, specifically for Honey Care Properties, LLC. So if we can have a motion and a second.
I move that we discuss and take action on item number 10 as written.
Have a motion from Massey. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Have a second from Blue. Okay, Cynthia, it's your motion.
I have some issues with this sign.
Before you
I-
get, did you see the revised one?
Oh, yes, I'm looking at it right now.
Okay, all right.
I do know that the existing subdivision sign is tilted over, so if that's not attractive. If it wasn't tilted over, it would be fine, but, so that now they have suggested putting this new thing, and Helotes Ranch Acres is underneath, but the biggest, most prominent sign is the Honey's House sign. And I think this is a hybrid sign, okay? And I think it's very awkward, it's very strange. The other thing too is, when I was looking at our code of ordinances for this, it says that commercial signs need to be in front of the driveway of the business. And this is not in front of their driveway. It's not near their driveway. Also, the address it says 10410, and is that 10410 1560 or Paragon, okay? Because of the way it's angled, it's kind of hard to tell. The residence, the living facility is this sign for both those houses, basically, is what I'm asking. Is it for both the houses or both the assisted living facilities?
Correct.
Okay. I just think it's very confusing to have a commercial sign and a residential sign combined into one.
And especially with the commercial sign being so huge, I did show this I know that two of you live in this subdivision, so you would obviously want to weigh in. I did ask another individual who lives in that subdivision, when I showed her this, she absolutely was appalled about it. She did not like it. So I'm wondering, she said that if they had done the sign, you know how they have Helotes Ranch Acres with if they had done the Honey's House part smaller like that, down, like across like that, and just have Honey's House like that, not so prominent, had it more of that country look, that might be better. But the other thing I wanted to ask is that they ask anyone in the subdivision about pulling down the sign that apparently a lot of citizens put together. They bought money, they had money and put this together. Were any of the citizens, residents who live in that area asked?
Not that I'm aware of, and when that sign that's there now was put up, I actually drew the plan for it, and Russ Castle helped put it up, and we all just pitched in money, and then we donated some of it also. But it is on their property.
The
So
sign
they-
is on their property.
Yeah, so they don't have to leave it there if they don't want to. And that's why they wanted to compromise and leave Helotes Ranch Acres as part of that sign.
Okay. I still do not like the prominence of their business sign in front of this subdivision like that. It's a residential subdivision. It's supposed to be according to our ordinance in front of their driveway. And so anyway, that's my thoughts on the matter at this point.
Okay, Alex?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When the sign was first presented to planning and zoning, it was very different than what it looks like here, and I think that the owners have made some considerable accommodations to the requests that planning and zoning had. I didn't read into the whole idea of the location of the sign. However, the reason for the location, I think, is because that's where the existing sign is that was the neighborhood entrance sign, which, when it was erected, was on somebody's residential piece of property, but since then, it's been zoned and changed and made into commercial property, and now they could just tear the sign down and put up, basically, they could put up this on, take the Helotes Ranch Acres off the bottom and put up this sign, and it would never have come to us because it doesn't require variance. With the modifications, 8 feet tall, this width, monument style, unlit,
Yeah, actually,
completely complies with our ordinance.
right.
So and when P and Z asked the representative, who was actually the company, the sign company guy, not the business owner, he said that the owner was trying to at least put the Helotes Ranch Acres name on there in deference to the fact that the old sign is being taken down because it's about to fall down. And he knew that he could just put up his own sign and not have any reference to the neighborhood, but he was just putting the name of the neighborhood there just in deference to the fact that that's where the entrance of the neighborhood is. I understand the concern about the location being not next to the driveway, but if you put it by the driveway, I don't know how then the neighborhood entrance sign is going to blend with it. I don't know. This is something I don't think we're going to find in our ordinance because it really is. It's a hybrid, and I think it's one of the first we've had that fits this definition. I'm leaning in favor of it simply because of that. I would be nice if the colors were different, maybe not quite so bright white and maybe a little muted in that sense, but I don't know what recommendation we can make on that regard. And I'd wait to hear other comments. Thank you.
Bert?
Okay, I do live in Helotes Ranch Acres, that subdivision, and I think it's about a couple of years ago, I had a sign builder or whatever come out and check the sign because of the way it looks, because of the leaning part of it. And his recommendation to me was to tear it down and start over. He said that the ground down there moves a lot, and he said the way this one was built was the base wasn't big enough. He would suggest drilling down into the ground and putting up poles and redoing the whole thing. So that, he told me that would be the cheapest way to go. I had a couple of questions, and then I'll comment on how it looks. Are we sure that even though it's on their property, that it is out of the right-of-way for sure, because sooner or later, they're going to be widening 1560. Are we sure that that we won't have a problem with that?
We wouldn't, they would, but as far as I know, it's on their property.
Okay.
It's out of TxDOT right away.
Okay.
The
all right.
only issue-
Even if they do, because it's supposed to come pretty soon. I hate for them to put up a sign and then have to move it because it's too close. Probably not. I would check on that to be sure before they start, if we decide to allow this. And then another thing about the sign itself, they're saying vinyl letters, but I don't know what they're going to use for the Helotes Ranch Acres lettering, but it's saying vinyl letters. And to keep that area nice over there, they mow and they weed eat. Vinyl letters are not going to last. So I would suggest some kind of, sturdier, maybe metal letters or something like that. I would tell them to do that. And then my last thing, I'm like I said, I live in that subdivision, and I don't have a problem with that sign. I think it looks just fine. I'm sure everybody's got their opinions of it, but now that they've reduced it and brought it into conformance with our ordinance, I like it. And it's really not that far away from one of the driveways there at Honey House. It's not exactly right next to it, but it's not that far away. Those boxes, if that picture showed just a little bit further to the right, the driveway would be there. So I'm in favor of it.
Paul?
I do think it's kind of busy with the combination, but it does conform, so I really didn't have any issues. I'm just, like we talked earlier, the bushes grow too much bigger, you're not going to be able to see Helotes Ranch Acres.
But that's one thing I was going to point out, no plants in front if you all approved it. I would like to just say that several months ago, Danny Kitchen and the sign guy came by and visited with me just to show a preliminary plan. And it was, as I recall, different than what they wound up with. And I think they brought the larger sign and made it look nicer than the original proposed sign. And I had questioned the Helotes Ranch Acres, and they were just trying to be nice, because I told them, hey, you're not obligated to do that. And they wanted to do it to keep the Helotes Ranch Acres there, but yet let them advertise their business. Alex also brought up what I was hoping that we would talk about, and that's that when they sent this in, and the sign is now within the size restrictions, the height restrictions, all the other restrictions, there really isn't a variance to be granted on this sign. The only reason we left it on the agenda is because it is unusual, and it has that mixture of residential and commercial, and just wanted you guys to talk about it and then either approve it or deny it. But I don't know how you can approve it really or deny it, since that particular type of sign is not in our sign ordinance. And so there's no violation of the ordinance, but I think it would just be a consensus or an approval or a denial, and then we'll see what they do. We can certainly add the caveat of putting either Paragon or FM 1560, and I think it's Paragon also, and address the color, maybe do a more muted background color. It would be their prerogative to do it. And then no plants in front if you guys agree that this sign is worthy of having approval. And then we'll have to add this to our sign ordinance changes that we're recommending to have this kind of a sign perhaps covered by the sign ordinance. So anyway, with that, Cindy, any further?
The more everyone was talking, I'm looking at it, and I think it looks, I think you're right about, it's the colors that really, really bother me, the white, the big stark white and the blue, and then all of a sudden down on the bottom, it's the muted, earth tone. It's incongruent, doesn't go together.
Yeah.
And that is a real eyesore to me. And as far as, I think you're right. I think, how can we approve something that we don't have an ordinance for? This is a hybrid
Right.
sign.
Right.
It is not one or the other. We have a residential sign, because when people think, there's a lot of residential monuments all along 1560 that are quite nice. And so when I saw this, I went, it just doesn't go well. And I'm not sure you should be able to do this, to combine a residential sign with a commercial thing. It just doesn't even go. Someone driving by, they're going to go, what is this? Helotes Ranch Acres, what is that? What, Honey's House? It doesn't even make sense.
Well, living in Ranch Acres, for years, we've told people, hey, look for the Helotes Ranch Acres sign. I think this shouldn't be confusing. You know, it's showing the subdivision. Those of us that live there, just tell people, hey, come to Paragon, you'll see now Honey's House and Helotes Ranch Acres.
Well, like I said, the one individual who lived there, the minute she saw it, she said, this is gaudy. It's just, you know, it's like, it's just relegating an entire subdivision to this little bitty thing, and this one little business has got the whole thing. And yes, it's on their property. Now that I know that, I understand this, but again, it does say that commercial signs, monument types, it says driveway entrance signs, monument type. That's driveway entrance. It's not by the driveway entrance either. So, I mean, we could say it's not by the driveway entrance. So anyway, I don't think that we can do anything with this as written here.
Pretty much. That was my thinking also. Okay. Alex, any follow-up?
So we don't regulate the wording and copy of a commercial sign, correct, Rick? Right. So this sign would qualify completely as a commercial sign, whether it had the words Helotes Ranch Acres on it or not. Is that correct?
Yes.
Because we don't regulate the copy of it.
Right.
So just because they've added the wording to the bottom, Helotes Ranch Acres, doesn't necessarily make it a residential neighborhood sign. It still qualifies as a fully conforming commercial sign. We also have other, and I get the idea about the driveway part. A Walmart sign, for example, is nowhere near a driveway. It's on the corner of their property. And we've got a number of other monument signs that we've permitted that have nothing to do with that. The dentist up here on Whippoorwill, they just got approval on their sign. It's not by the driveway. So it would make sense that if it was by the driveway, except that in this case it's by the corner, which makes more sense from a commercial perspective. I would like to see their willingness, if they could, to make it muted. And of course, to put the complete address on there to avoid the confusion, because I could see how somebody looking for a certain street number on 1560, seeing that and thinking maybe they had gotten to the wrong place. So how to work that, I don't know, but muted. And I know that it's their prerogative, but I think they've worked with us very well in the past, and I think they'll be willing to cooperate in that regard to tone it down a little bit. So I still say that I think we're pretty well, I think I'll still vote in favor. Thank you.
Bert?
Okay. What constitutes by the driveway? Because it's really not that far from the driveway. It is, in my mind, by the driveway. And if we don't, well, it doesn't sound like we can do anything, maybe, but if we don't allow them to put that Helotes Ranch Acres on it, because it's a hybrid sign or whatever you're calling it, then our subdivision will lose all, there'd be no way to know that that's Helotes Ranch Acres anymore, because where are we going to put a sign?
Well, again, since it's not covered in the ordinance, we can't prohibit them from putting the Helotes Ranch Acres on there. That's my opinion.
All right, well, I'd like to go with what Alex is saying, and then also, like I said earlier, make sure that they know to put not vinyl letters down at the bottom, but put some sturdy letters down there.
Yeah,
'Cause it's gonna get hammered.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that, but I'm sure that's on the sign itself, since that's rock
Well, I
down
didn't
there.
see anything about what kind of lettering other than vinyl, and
I
I
left-
figured that was just the Honey House sign, but if they're gonna use vinyl on the bottom too, that's not gonna work.
I left a message for Danny Kitchen today about that, and even told him he could just use those same letters that are on the existing sign.
That would be, yeah.
Paul, anything from you?
No, sir.
Okay, again, like I said, rather than pull it, I was just curious to see what the discussion was going to be, but with the revisions and doing everything that planning and zoning pointed out to bring it within the constraints of the ordinance, I don't know that there would be a way to deny what they're doing, and I don't know that there's a reason to approve it. But since we're at this point, and we have a motion and a second to take action, knowing full well that we're just basically given a consensus of opinion. And I will talk to Danny about the color change, and I don't think they'd have any problem with that. But they're not
Mr.
obligated to do it either.
Mr. Kitchen's here.
Oh, you're here.
There he is.
I didn't, you snuck in. Danny, come on up, and let's visit about this. Sorry, I didn't see you out there.
No, that's okay.
Say who you are and who you represent.
Danny Kitchen with Honey's House of Helotes.
Thanks for being here. You're answering, going to be able to answer some questions that I think are important to be answered.
Those are going to be raised aluminum letters at the
Oh,
bottom
okay.
as well. So
You're not going to use the same ones that are out there?
we can. I don't know
I
how
mean,
they are
they're-
on
They're
there, but-
sturdy, because I was the one that took them down and painted them and sanded them and did all that and then painted them. They're still in good shape.
We can.
So, I mean, if
definitely-
you want to use
we
them,
can definitely try. If not, they are metal, aluminum raised.
I think they're not aluminum.
Yeah, I don't think they're aluminum. They're just old wrought iron letters that.
Might be
man
neat to
made years-
incorporate if
maybe
we can.
Probably 30 years.
So.
Okay.
Color? You got any ideas on, rather
Now-
than have the stark white, do something maybe?
Now, are you talking about the color right at the bottom by where it has an address on it?
I think it's the background color of the sign itself, the stark white.
It
that-
looks like
that
a
they're-
for sale sign. I mean, it looks like a sign you would put in front of a house that you want to lease. That's what it looks
I'm
like.
totally up for colors. We can come up with a couple iterations and
Something
see which one.
muted.
I did reach out to JD with the sign company because the bottom, I noticed that the color, I told him something looked off about the dress color as well down at the bottom. I think he had a different color background on it, so we're going to work on that as well, so.
Okay, and on the address, you are Paragon, and so any problem putting Paragon on there?
No, that's fine. Do you think that's going to throw people off when they're driving down 1560?
That's a good point.
What?
Throw them off.
It's going to throw people off who, they're going to think it's 1560.
That's kind of why I didn't initially have the address on there.
So this is multiple choice? I mean, Paragon's
Kind of
Paragon.
tough on.
You can't have both. You're either on Paragon or you're on 1560. Which is your address?
And that is,
We're on Paragon.
And
We're
that
at
is-
10410 Paragon.
that is Paragon.
Sure.
So,
I think it'll be all right.
It's fine with me.
anyway, we can hash all this out.
Sure.
But you are amenable to looking at.
Absolutely.
Background color, doing something a
That's
little
no
different. Okay.
Oh, and then you heard me, were you here when I was discussing, I went and met with some people down there to get this one fixed? And his deal was to make sure and just start from scratch, because you're gonna have to drill, that soil there is not real stable. That's what he told me,
Okay.
just for your info with your sign
Absolutely.
builder, make sure he's got a
It's
good
probably
foundation.
gonna need to be a pretty good foundation right
Well,
down there.
he
A header.
suggested drilling into the ground, so just for your info, that's what he told me.
Everyone's picking on that sign, leaning.
It's still
Now, I will
leaning.
say,
It's still
it-
up.
It
I mean,
wasn't done quite like it was supposed to be done, but I wasn't there that particular day they were putting the foundation in, but hey, it lasted for
Sure did.
30 years. Well, 25 before it started.
Still hanging
leaning.
on. That's fine, and there,
What can
we
you
can
do?
work out the plants up front and everything. There's not gonna be any bushes covering the Helotes Ranch Acres. I just thought it'd be neat to incorporate the Helotes Ranch Acres and not just get rid of it altogether, so kind of make it a hybrid
What-
sign.
You do comply with everything now, so we appreciate you doing that.
Alrighty,
Okay.
thank you.
Any other questions of Danny? Okay. Well, since we started this, we might as well go ahead and just do a yay or nay on it and just get that in the record. So all in favor of approving the sign as it's now in compliance, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
So you're nay. So we have one nay, Massey. Okay, that takes us to 11, discussion and action for approval of a site development sign for a proposed retail shopping center located at 13523 Bandera Road, down there by the antique store and Bobby J's. And we do have someone here representing that particular property, but before we do that, we'll get a motion and a second, see how discussion goes, and if there are any specific questions. So a motion and a second, please.
Mayor, I make a motion to discuss, take action on 11.
We have a motion from Buys. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
I think he said it first.
You want a second? Okay. We have
Really matter.
a second from Blue. You guys had me worried there for a second. Okay, so we have a motion from Buys, a second from Blue. Bert?
Okay, I was at the P and Z meeting, and from what I remember, and it's in our verbiage here, they recommended approval of the variance to the height restrictions, but denial to the other variance because of the, there was too many things that weren't in compliance. As far as I know, I went and looked at the signs. It's two of the same signs. Is that correct? That's all we're talking about here, right? They're both the same exact sign.
If you want to ask him questions, I'll get him up.
Yes, if you don't mind.
If you would, go ahead.
I've got
Come
another
on up.
question.
State your name and who you represent, please.
My name is Brett Newman. I'm with Texas Premier Capital.
Okay. All right, yeah, so those are the two signs we're talking about, of course.
Yes.
And my question to you is, in the applicant, how long are you going to leave those signs up? I mean, you're saying here February 1st or possibly through May 1st?
Well, the request has an incorrect date on there. The exact date we'll be taking them down, I don't,
Yeah, I understand that, but I mean, you got a ballpark?
3 months
Okay, from today?
from today would be about when we will be taking them down.
All right, I mean, to me, I mean, I went and looked, and one of them is, that's a long piece of property on, but to me, it's a long piece of property on Bandera Road. And one sign is at a different, to me, elevation than another. It's they're temporary signs. I don't see a problem with the signs being there for at least not more than 3 months, hopefully less. But, I mean, until this was brought up, I didn't even notice them, and I drive down there a lot. So, sorry about that. But, So anyway, that's my opinion on them right now. I'd like to hear what the rest of council has to say on this.
Okay. Alex, your second?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There actually are multiple issues with the request that were brought up. Obviously, 2 signs versus 1. The size of the signs is considerably, if not double the size of what we allow, if not more than that. The height, of course, is also an issue, and then the fact that they're lit, and they're not even downward lit, they're upward lit right now. And so all of those issues are there. Planning and zoning, their recommendation to us was to basically only allow 1 sign, and the only of the thing was to allow 1 sign and at least let it stay with a 13-foot height. And I think that was in deference to the fact that right now there's a great deal of construction right there. And while I don't see the necessity to be 13 feet off when it's not even close to the 8-foot requirement. And I mean, almost every part of this is not even close. It's double or more of what our ordinance is. And I think that, we do need to stick with them and with the ordinances that we have. In deference to planning and zoning, I would say that I would agree with their recommendation that the only one of the variances be the height for 1, and that would be their choice of which sign, but not lit, not 2, and not that size, although I'm not quite sure how you would reduce the size since they're already up billboard style. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Cynthia?
I drove by there and saw the signs, and they didn't look that big to me because of where they are, okay? I didn't understand the need for both of the signs myself. One sign seemed to be sufficient, the one that's in the actual property, not on this end, towards the end. But I think that if it was any smaller, because it looks like it's almost, well, it's more than double the square footage size. if they make it smaller, I don't think anyone's gonna be able to read it. There's a lot of words on it. It's very wordy. And I don't think they'll be able to, you're flying by and go, oh, I see this sign. Well, they're gonna have to stop anyway. They're gonna have to come around and stop to look at it, I suppose. But I don't know, the size of it, because of where it's located, doesn't bother me. The fact that there's two, to me, is unnecessary. I didn't notice anything about the lighting, because I haven't seen it at night. I haven't seen it, so I don't know about that. But that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Selena, if you would, go ahead and pass those down. He did bring some stuff to give to you guys. Paul, any comments?
I mean, I like what I drove by, and I didn't seem to have too big of an issue with them. I, like Councilman Massey, didn't see the need for two of them, but whatever. And I didn't find them too obtrusive, and I think in my notes to P&Z, if I remember correctly, I had mentioned something when we were asking for city council input on the sign ordinance, that we needed something for temporary signage. So I think P&Z needs to hopefully address something like this in their review of our sign ordinance. But for the most part, I didn't have too much of an issue with the signage. We can quibble about the lighting, but
Okay, did you want to discuss what you
Right, what you're
had us
seeing
pass
there
out?
is a PowerPoint presentation we put together today. And I went out and I measured some signs and put them together here so you guys could take a look at all the other signs that you're looking at that are along Highway 16 here in front of some of your other buildings. Very similar signs. And I've only found one sign that's in compliance to the ordinance out there. And I measured most of them. We're seeing signs, some are bigger than what I have. Some, there's many properties that have more than one development sign on there. There's one that's lit. And then I've given you addresses, and I've given you some measurements and square footages, just something tangible you could look at. For example, number 4, that's on the corner of Highway 16 and 1560, which is relatively close to
Yeah,
here.
and I've seen those signs. They're horrible.
They're two big signs there. Well, I'll get to get to that in a minute. These signs are very important. I'm not here fighting on or requesting approval for my signs. It's the development that we need to be successful. And advertising and having signs is very important during this part when we're leasing up. So we have a 22,000 square foot retail development that will be coming hopefully before too long. The plat, you guys will be looking at it to approve it. And this is a big task, getting it leased up and getting tenants, businesses that want to move their business to Helotes and then to that particular piece of property. So I love having the lights on there. The more eyes I can get on it, the better. Just statistically, it is, you know. So on number 5, you're seeing about a 4,000 or 5,000 square foot freestanding building. It's been there for years. And there's 1, 2, 3 signs, and then the marquee sign's been converted. And then they have a light that they're utilizing to light up one of the signs.
Did your land purchase include the building that's there now, Europia
Yes.
Antiques? What's going to happen with that? Is that going to come
I
down?
would like to see it moved into Old Helotes somewhere and donate it, try to get it moved.
Okay.
That's what I would like to see happen to it. Now, I don't, or happen with it. I don't know how feasible that is. I've moved several structures like that before. I know I can move that, I just don't know how far
Okay.
before it falls apart.
Y'all have any questions on this presentation showing multiple signs and other assorted things in other places. Okay, just stand by. Any, let's see, Bert, any more questions for him?
I guess the only thing that, I still stick by my first statement. I don't see a problem with 2 signs there because it's an elevation change. Maybe lowering them a little bit, maybe. No, I tell you what, they're fine right there. But I'd like to see them, not go past 3 months, like you're saying. And the upward lighting, I'm sorry, I missed that part. I'm not for that. Have to be either, maybe if you want to downlight them, or no lighting at all. I would be for that. But I don't have a problem with two signs on that property. Now, is that also the property where the O'Reilly's was going to go?
No, well, the O'Reilly's is going there.
Oh, it
They-
is going
They have a plat that's been approved.
Right.
Is that the same property?
We're sharing, yes.
You're
well,
sharing it.
We're sharing a drive with them.
Okay,
So that'll all be linked together
okay.
in terms of,
Because I didn't see there's not an O'Reilly on the sign or on this, but you're
no,
you're
O'Reilly's,
just doing it for the.
they don't have a sign.
Yeah,
They
and
feel-
when you're driving by there, to be honest, I tell you this, but when you're driving by there, because there's so much construction stuff, I'm worried about hitting the concrete deals more than looking at your signs.
No kidding, I know. But
So,
those aren't going to be
I-
there
I
very
don't-
much longer.
I don't think that many people even see them. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is with me, because I'm watching out. Well, I'm older now. I got to really watch how I drive.
Right, you gotta
But
really
anyway,
watch it right now.
but the 2 signs don't bother me, and especially since they're temporary.
So if I could clarify, the reason why I have 2 is because we have all the trees, all those beautiful oak trees. It just really divides that thing, and I've got some traffic going out of town. They're visible. And then when you're coming into town, that was a purpose for the other sign.
Did you come by City Hall and talk to the staff here about the restrictions and other things on the signs before you put them
No,
up?
we had
Or
a
did you
pre,
just?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. We had a pre-development meeting, and I brought up the sign, but I didn't inquire about the ordinance.
Okay. Well, before you get started on anything else, it's good to come down here and visit with our folks, and that way they can kind of lead you through the minefield, so to speak. We try and not be too restrictive, but we do have ordinances, and that's why they're there, so people will follow them or else ask for variances before, not after they do something. Alex, anything else?
Well, I understand that the sign is busy, which might be why it's that way, although most of your pre-development signs aren't as busy because they're really just trying to advertise it, not show a picture of the coming development. But I'm not in favor of the 2 signs or the lighting. I can give in on allowing 1 sign to remain as long as we pin down the ending time of it and stand firm with that. Thank you.
Cynthia?
Well, as far as the 2 signs, I'm not going to quibble about the 2 signs. I think that it's important that we get these, businesses there. I'm looking at the sign, and it says "Coming soon, retail shopping center," and then underneath in smaller letters it says "pre-leasing." Isn't the whole point of the sign the pre-leasing, or do you already have tenants for?
No,
this?
we're gathering tenants.
I'm
So,
sorry?
No, we're soliciting tenants.
Soliciting, okay, because that seems to be the secondary part of this sign. I would thought that would be the reason that you're having the sign up, to get more, to get tenants. Is that who's this sign for? I guess
It's
that's my
for
question.
tenants that want to
It's
open up
for
their
future
businesses.
tenants.
That want to
Okay.
bring their businesses to the
Because the
building.
first thing you see then is "coming soon," and I don't know, because I'm, not in that kind of business, so I don't know, as if I was looking for property, if the "coming soon" would just, go, oh, what's coming soon? Anyway, it took me a while to realize that you're pre-leasing
Yes.
because of, it's smaller underneath, that's
Right.
all. I was just trying to figure out who this sign was for. Was it for the citizens of Helotes to see? That too, I guess. It's
Yes,
gonna be nice.
that's the purpose of the rendering.
Right, okay. Just trying to figure out who the audience is. But, if 3 months of having 2 signs up that you can barely see anyway when you're driving fast, I don't have a problem with it myself. And the size,
The lighting, I think it should conform with our lighting ordinance. Other than that, I'm not gonna quibble with all of the other stuff.
Paul?
I'm okay with the signs. If we want to do something with the lighting, that's fine with me. But I'm not going to quibble over lights. I thought the signs were coming down in February, but, so I was wondering why we were even talking about this, if they were coming down in February.
Well, see, that was another thing that I noticed on the original agenda item, and then on your letter also. You were talking about, your first one had February 2017, and that's why I asked Susan to call you. I'm assuming she called you, or at least somebody else, to try and get the dates straight. And my understanding from her was that February 1st was the date it would come down. I thought, well, why are we even messing with it? So then we looked at, part of your packet said 6 months from December 1st, which I didn't really understand since your letter was dated December 21st. And 6 months from December 1st would be June 1st. So we have this
There was a
multiple
typo.
choice of times in here and dates. So what is it specifically? Is this 90
6 months
days
from
adequate?
June 1st is my preferred date.
But these guys are talking 90 days.
I understand that, and I've been unclear with that. We had a typo when we sent that out, and I didn't review
Yeah.
that original date.
But it was confusing, and it still is, so, and that's what happens when we have multiple variances, because now we're gonna have to piecemeal them together and try and take an action here and see what they'll go with. So, see if this would fit your motion then, from what I'm hearing. What was the date? 90 days that you
Well,
wanted?
that's what
Or
he said.
go
He said-
June 1st?
He said 3 months.
3
from
months?
today.
3 months, that's okay?
I'm going to just request the 6 months from December 1st, and I understand if it was unclear and y'all guys need them down before then, I'll just have to,
So now we're talking June 1st?
I would like until June 1st, yes.
Okay. So is June 1st give you heartburn?
Okay. First you said 3 months, and now it's June 1st.
I think you said 3 months, or did you?
No, he did.
You
Well,
did?
I confirmed what we
Okay.
mistakenly put on our letter.
Somewhere we have to get a motion that we can take action on. So right now, it's a choice between letting him have one or both signs up. It sounds like both signs will be amenable to at least the majority of you, whether or not to allow lighting, and whether or not to allow to June 1st. And then just the variance would be for height and number of signs that way.
Okay. I'll be okay with June 1st, and then comply with our lighting ordinance. And I'd say, and keep both signs. That's my motion.
Keep both signs as they are now. Remove the lighting.
No, I said down lighting.
Well, it says, no, there's no, our code says.
Yeah,
not
the code
allowed.
says no
Oh,
lighting.
no, okay, no lighting.
No
Okay,
lighting.
Sorry.
And you're just gonna have to bite the bullet on that, because that's specific in the ordinance. And then, so the height will be okay, the size will be okay, and the number being 2 will be okay. So we're really looking at June 1st. They will be good until June 1st, and to remove the lighting. So that's your motion?
Yeah.
Okay, Alex, are you okay with that amended
I'll
motion?
keep the second so that we can pass it, but so we can vote on it, but I won't vote for it.
Okay. Cynthia, are you okay with that? Leaving both signs as they are, size-wise, height-wise, removing the lighting, letting it go till June 1st?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. And when is daylight savings times? Because that's going to help with your lighting. You won't need the light.
Spring break.
Paul?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So then the motion is to grant the variance for the keeping the 2 signs, letting them stay the size they are and the height they are, letting the time run until June 1st, but remove the lighting. So if you vote yes, you're voting for all of that. If you don't like any of it, then you would vote no. Any further questions? Okay, we'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
No.
We have one no vote, blue. Got it? You understand?
Yes.
Just check with the staff.
Yeah,
Oh, you're taking them back?
No,
Not really, I guess.
we
It's
see
a
enough
done deal.
signs.
We get them to the code compliance officer.
Keep them
I think we need to keep one with the city secretary for the official record.
Thank you.
We'll be busy tomorrow.
You betcha. Okay, that's the last item on our agenda. So if there are no objections, we will adjourn the meeting. No objections being heard. We're adjourned at 7:50.